And finally, after a month of looking at the individual Transformers Legacy Evolution core class Dinobots, followed by all of them combined as Volcanicus, we kind of end our series of looking at all of that with this, the DNA Design DK47 Upgrade Kit. By the way, all of this put together as like a little storage base, I suppose, is really cool. This kit, how much of a difference does it make to Volcanicus, to the Dinobots? We're about to find out in the latest GotBot True review. Hey one, hey all, welcome back to the channel. I'm your host, your most humble of hosts, Dennis Moulton, aka GotBot. As always, please like, comment, share. Of course, subscribe, and while you are at it, light them up, baby. Hit that notification bell, please. Helps me out a ton, let you know when content of all sorts goes up here on the channel. Check out Machinery of Man, The Everything Factor, all the groups that I'm either a mod or an admin for, as well as all of my social media links. All of that is in the description down below. Also in the description down below, and if you're in a position to help the channel to grow, you can use the donate link, check us out on Patreon, see what we have to offer to you through spring, or of course hit the join button at any given time and become a channel member. And this is, as I said, the DNA DK47 upgrade kit for Core Class Volcanicus. Core Class Volcanicus is a better combiner than I thought a Core Class was going to be. When I reviewed it, I actually said I expected it to be a little lackluster, kind of like the Transformers Prime Abominus made up of the little Legion class lads. This is more solid than that. Then I wondered about the articulation. For the most part it's okay, but those arms are a little bit abysmal because of the gorilla arm syndrome. This helps with that and adds so much more. But is it value that's added, or is it just some extra bells and whistles? How about we head over to the table and take a closer look at this set? And yes, indeed, we conclude our look at the Transformers Legacy Evolution Volcanicus with an add-on kit. I'm not gonna lie, I always find add-on kits to be a pain in the butt to review because there's so much to try and cover. I'm gonna do my best to cover it all. We will not be doing the actual transformations. We have already seen the transformations from robot to dino to, you know, arm mode or leg mode or torso. Upper torso, lower torso mode. All those were in the individual Dinobot reviews. So if you're wondering how to actually do those transformations, they're there, though we will talk about it when we get to combine mode. This is the box. I mean, it shows kind of this, I don't even know what to call it. It's not a base, but it's like a weapons locker, but it's more than that because there's feet there too, and yeah, there's swords and spikes. This is weird, but like I guess it's like a base type of thing. Anyway, that's the front of the box. This is the side. The other side and the back just kind of outlines everything that's in here, from the two arms for Grimlock, or I guess two upper torso body pieces and dino arms. The pelvis piece for Volcanicus, the arms and the feet, the fillers for Sludge, the two big swords for Volcanicus, and you'll notice a bunch of other swords and blasters. I'm going to say one for each one, but that's not the way they show it in the instructions. We'll talk about it as we quickly run through each of the Dinobots. Also in the package, oh, we got ourselves a big old sheet of instructions. It is double-sided and it shows a lot. Now let's very quickly run through each of the individual Dinobots because I think that's probably the best way to go. This, of course, is the newest one, Scar, and he will be an arm, and he will use this arm piece with the hand and whatnot. We'll see that later. For individual mode here, what they show in the instructions is two of these blasters that look mysteriously like the G1 toy blasters for Snarl. They can go in his hands, or they can poke it on slots on the side of his legs. They do face forward and back. This works better in, I think, Dino mode, where they face up and down than it does here. But it's an option if you don't want to put it in his hands. That said, if it was me, I would take one of these blasters and one of the swords, instead of giving this guy two of the same blaster on either side of his leg. But that's just me. This is what the instructions say. You can kind of do what it is you want to do. But that is Scar covered. Moving from him, we get to our kind of more familiar 5 Dinobots with the other arm, that being Swoop. Swoop will use this arm piece here. We'll see that later. And Swoop has two swords. Very close in by his back. There are, I guess, little square, little rectangular slots. And these two swords in particular are able to slot into those square rectangular holes. That said, again, I would prefer if we were able to give him a blaster and a sword, but you know, I mean, it is what it is. Maybe you could when they are, like, you know, in combat, but for storage, that's where these two swords can go. And again, they look very much exactly the same. I do recognize them from G1. I don't know whose sword it is that they are, but that's how they go on Swoop. They use the two rectangular slots that are on the back of the wings. In fact, I'm just going to take one sword out just so you can see the slot back right there. So that's our second one. Moving from arms, we go down to the legs next, and that's the same sword that Snarl actually comes with, which is fine because Snarl actually used his sword like a blaster in the show. However, we do have this blaster over here that I don't particularly recognize, but if I was to guess it as anyone's, it would not be Snarl, because I feel like Snarl's looks different. Maybe I'm wrong. Again, there are two, one in his hand and one here on his back where normally the sword goes. Because they all use that vertical rectangular slot on the back piece, I'm really not sure where you would be able to put the other blaster or his sword when not in use. You'd have to explore that. All the instruction shows putting it there. I've explored it a little bit and I can't find another storage option. If somebody does know of one or they've explored it more and found one, hey, feel free to put it down in the comments and maybe I'll pin that particular comment. So as I say that right now, if you're wondering if there's other storage options for these, check the comments, see if I pinned something. If I didn't, that means that there wasn't. But again, two little blasters. So far, we've had two blasters, two swords, and then two blasters again. Really waiting for somebody to have a sword and a blaster at this point. I mean, I guess Grimlock sort of has a sword and a blaster. Of course, he already had a blaster because it's part of his tail, I believe. So he's holding that in his hand. The sword, of course, can go in his hand, but if you want to store it, you have to use that, I guess, horizontal rectangular slot kind of at his knee or above his knee, and that's where the sword can plug in. It shows it going in dino mode on his back basically, right? But in robot mode, if you don't want it in his hand, you can always store it on his leg, I guess. It's also worth noting that Grimlock has new torso pieces back here that have movable arms as compared to his stock pieces that have static arms. Worth noting, I do think that the new pieces and the movable dino arms are definitely an improvement. Transforms the exact same way by coming over in front of his body and clipping together. Next we come to our upper torso boy, being Slug or Slag, whatever it is that you prefer. By the way, Grimlock should have two swords. We'll talk about that in a few moments. He has the two fanciest swords. They go in on the side of his legs. If you don't want them in his hands, I think that that's fine storage. His blaster and, of course, the head for Volcanicus still store on the back just fine. And the last of our individual Dinobots is Sludge, and Sludge actually has the most to discuss. First, on his shoulder we have a sword put in there. That's the other one that's supposed to be with Grimlock, I guess on his other leg. But it also fits on Sludge's shoulder, so if you want to give Sludge a sword, it fits on his shoulder fine if you don't want to put it in his hand. Though, of course, it can go in his hand. Just thought that was interesting, worth noting. He also has what seems to be two versions of his big blaster, his big G1-esque blaster, and not for nothing, they go over little starts behind his shoulders. There's a circular hole in each of these blasters, and again, the blasters can fit in his hand, no problem, and they go over, see if I can show it now, go over those starts right there behind his shoulder. I don't know if you can see that. Those starts right there. So, I mean, neat that you could, again, give him two. I would be more inclined to give one to each Dinobot, right? So, there's enough in there for every Dinobot to have a sword and a blaster, which the Dinobots really should, certainly in robot mode. You'll also notice that this guy has fillers in on his back to get rid of some of the hollowness, which he really needed. And out here, I didn't talk about it in, I don't think I talked about it anyway, in his individual review, but in the back of the dino legs. It's a shame that under the dino head and in the neck, that's still hollow. This guy suffered a lot to be a pair of pants, or a pair of shorts, I should say. He really did. It was a lot of hollowness. I feel like Sludge was, if any of them was an afterthought, I feel like it was poor Sludge. Nevertheless, the fillers really, really help him. And this is what we call the base mode. It's okay. The crux of it has the arms in the center, the two of the little blasters down here, the waist piece here, the two big swords are stuck into the feet peg onto the sides, and all 6 of the swords are angled around. It's fine. It's solid enough. It stands. It does what it needs to do. And I guess it's nice to have it. If you, like, for example, let's say you wanted your Dinobots to have their swords. Well, then you could come here and remove the 6 swords. I guess I'll put this one back in here for now. And that just came out. It's not the most solid thing for holding together, but like it's fine. So like if you wanted to take the swords out, you could. Now you got the swords left. If you wanted to take the big swords out, you also could. If you wanted to take the feet off, you could. All they're doing is there's a little slot right there and a little rectangular peg right there that slots in. On the other side, same sort of thing. When we remove it, there's a little slot right here by the wrist, and one of these little pegs goes in there. Fine. That leaves us with the 2 arm pieces. In terms of the arm pieces, we can remove the waist skirt for Volcanicus, and we can even untab the arms. And all we're doing is there's a tab right here on this arm that goes into a slot over here on this arm. Lay all of that aside, and then that leaves us with the arm that Swoop uses that has all the blasters on it. So we can remove both of those blasters and take them off, and then we can remove all the blasters on the top. So that's taking the base apart so that we can get to... Yes, indeed. Here we have Volcanicus in what I'm going to call his final form. Everything is on him here, and we're going to talk about it. Start from the bottom, work our way up. So he has a little bit of height added to him thanks to these feet pieces. And these feet pieces have a peg. I guess I should actually say a ball joint into the foot. That's what gives them ankle tilt and forward and backward motion. However, that ball joint also has like an H peg on it, and that H peg goes up into Snarl and up into Grimlock. If you look, after getting them in leg mode, at the bottom underneath, there's an H-shaped port, like between Snarl's legs, between Grimlock's legs, under the pelvis, say. It's an awkward location, but it's a perfect location for the adapters of the feet to go up. That said, the foot of that's on Grimlock tends to come out. It does not like to stay in. If I push it hard enough, it will. But if one's going to fall out, it will be that one. Other than that, the transformation for Snarl is exactly the same. The transformation for Grimlock is exactly the same. Though there is an alternate transformation where you can remove the dino head and store it under the foot, and the 2 I guess chest pieces with the little T-Rex arms on it can go angled up to make an alternate knee. I'm not doing that, but I will take Snarl's foot off here to show you. That's the H peg, right? That hopefully you can see, and the H slot is up underneath here. It's not bad once you get it lined up, but getting it lined up, yeah, it can be a little bit of a tricky nuisance. And see, Grimlock's is already out. The waist skirt piece here, I like it, but I do find that it means that he can only kick forward this far now. So honestly, I prefer it without it because he can kick further forward without the waist skirt on. So, I mean, to each their own. Hold on, I gotta get this foot back on. You can see the slot up under right there. I gotta get this foot back on, get him stood up. I'm gonna get rid of this waist piece and we'll go on from there. Okay, I've got the foot back on. Again, I don't know if it will last. But you'll notice he's back on here because there's a few things on the back that we have to talk about. First, the blaster that comes with Grimlock, that slots in behind the foot to give him an extra heel spur. The 2 swords, one I had given to Sludge, one I had on Grimlock's leg earlier, both of those now are on Grimlock's legs and stored behind. So that's where both of those swords go. The 2 swords that Slughead, that I said were the fanciest swords, they go into one of the hand pieces. The hand piece that worked with Scar, the stock hand piece that becomes his tail in Dino mode. They go into the fist. That hand piece goes up into the two hand pieces that Swoop had, and that kind of goes slotted in behind. This sword's sort of in the way. That goes slotted in behind here. This sword has a hole on it that goes over a peg right there. Or if you don't mind the swords not pegging on that peg, you can put them on the side into Snarl's, not Snarl, Slug's, like rectangular port. So you could, if I can do it, like you could put it there. It's not staying in there, but there's one on either side. So you could do that. If you wanted to keep the wing pack that I showed in the previous Volcanicus build, this wing pack, then you need to leave these legs untransformed, which means these two fist pieces and these two swords cannot store back there because that space isn't open. Just something to consider. In terms of the blasters, because that's 1, 2, 3, 4 of the swords. By the way, the other two swords are in those slots on Swoop's wings as they were before. So that's all 6 swords stored. 2 on Swoop, 2 on the fist piece that makes up part of the back, and 2 on Grimlock. When it comes to the blasters, the 2 Sludge blasters go underneath that forearm. The 2 blasters that we had with, oh, I don't know who it was now. Maybe it was Scar. They go in the hands of Swoop and face off or face up. And the last 2 blasters go over here in the neck hinge of Scar. If you look at the neck hinge of Scar's dino head, there's 2 circular ports on either side. I guess they're meant for the hinge to friction in there, but they are used to put the little 3mm pegs in there. So 2 blasters on Scar, 2 blasters in Swoop's hands, and 2 blasters on the forearm that goes with Swoop. I already told you I'm laying the waist piece aside. Let's turn this guy around. All right. In terms of a look for Volcanicus, like I see this and I immediately think that this is going to be Dino King. As a Volcanicus, my only frame of reference is the Power of the Primes, I guess Titan's Return, no, what was Power of the Primes? Prime Wars Trilogy Machinima Series version. That's the only thing we have. This doesn't look like the Beast from the old Marvel comics. And I guess it's a fine, like I gotta give it like a 9. I can't give it a 10 because we have the previous one for Power of the Primes. That would have to be the 10 because that's what set the bar. But I'll give this a 9. I do like that this is bulkier though. So it's sort of a mushy 9. Could be a 10. Could be a 7. Depends on how you see it. This is really subjective for his look. So I'm going to say a 9. In terms of the transformation to get here, it's still easy. He still goes together well. I'm going to say that the transformation to get here for the most part, I mean, the only thing that's different is that you are folding in the feet. When it comes to Swoop, you actually fold him right in Dino mode, and the forearm sandwiches between his Dino mode feet, basically. And in terms of Scar, you basically transform him to Dino mode, but you leave one of the legs untransformed, and this whole form slots down into that hollowness behind the leg from the knee down. Other than slotting in the 2 forearms and slotting up the feet, the transformation is exactly the same. So very easy transformation, 10. When we get to the articulations, we have 9 and 10, 9.5 so far for this set on Volcanicus. Let's do the articulation. The articulation still has a head that goes left and right because it's pegged in. We still have a waist that's pretty free-flowing for the most part. The hips, they still go out to the side, like about that far. We do now have a ankle tilt forward and back and side to side as well. We have now kick all the way forward. Again, I don't find I can do this with the waist piece on there. Maybe you can, but I don't find I can. Kick still all the way back, and we still have a knee to 90 degrees, as well as a thigh swivel, which is really because of the knee, some of the Sludge leg. But you can fake a thigh swivel, no problem. The arms, they still go out, as they did before, to pretty much a T-pose for the most part. But here's the big articulation difference. We no longer have the gorilla arms. Now we have an elbow to 90 degrees. We have a swivel. We have a wrist rotation. We have individually articulated fingers. And this sword actually goes into the hand via a rectangular slot on the, or tab on the sword that goes into a rectangular slot on the hand. The hardest part is fitting the fingers between the other piece on the hilt. As long as you can do that without popping fingers off, you're golden. On this side, still we have a really deep elbow because of the leg of Scar. We still have a bicep swivel. We still have the wrist rotation, and as you can see, we have a thumb, we have individually articulated fingers on a ball joint, no other hinges besides that. And I just had that foot come out again. Assuming the Grimlock foot wants to stay on your copy, and I assume that's just a tolerance thing. If this was mine and not on loan, I would definitely do a little bit of sanding and shaving to make sure it fits fine. As it is, I'm going to say that the added ankle tilt forward, back, side to side, the added elbow the right way, bicep swivel, wrist rotation, and fingers means that the articulation for this guy really is about a 9.75, 9.8. He was already getting a 9.5 overall. This kid adds value. Sure, everything doesn't store exactly the way I would like it, maybe not exactly the way you would like it, but it gives each Dinobot a sword and a blaster. It gives Sludge some much needed gap fillers, and for Volcanicus it vastly improves his articulation. Overall score for Volcanicus now, about a 9.85. Overall score for the DNA set, same thing, about a 9.85. Adds value, definitely worth getting for this guy. And here we are once again, and yes, I have the box here at the moment because this is sort of the easiest way I think to deal with this. We have individual swords and blasters for all 6 of the Dinobots. I thought that was great. I thought that that was something that they were missing, but I didn't really expect it for a little core class offering. I'm really glad that this set adds those to each of the Dinobots. In terms of storing them when it's not in their hands, I mean, you're going to have to kind of be a little bit creative. There are suggestions. I've seen pictures. The instructions have a few suggestions, but it's all sort of make it work. Then we have the 2 great big swords, which I think are really cool. They do store on the back. You can have one in his hand, or you can have one over the peg on the back, or they can go on the the sides, on the little slots that are there. I don't find using the slots to be very solid. I do find using the post on the back to be a little more solid. The feet, one of them I find really stays on really well. The other one I don't find stays on as well, which is really weird. I guess it's a tolerance thing, but they're okay. Love both of the forearms and hands. It fixes the arms tremendously. It gives him the arms he should have always had all along. Why the engineers did not design it that way, I don't know. Even if they'd kept the arms the way they were, and with the arm pieces that make the hands somehow worked in a wrist rotation, that's all you really needed. But as it is, these are infinitely better and really improve things. I don't know about the waist piece. I don't think we necessarily needed that. I guess it's cool that it's there. The little Grimmy arms, they're nice. It's nice that Grimlock at least can have his little T-Rex arms go up and down. I do think that's better. So I do think that there's certainly added value here for the individual Dinobots with all of their blasters and swords, as well as the arms of Grimlock, but also for Volcanicus with new feet that give him extra height, as well as whole new forearms, wrists, hands, articulated fingers, the whole 9. So yes, I do think that there's a lot here. Also, I do like I didn't talk about it in Sludge's review, but I'll mention it now. I don't know if I even talked about it in this review because it was already installed, so I didn't think of it. But all of the gap filler pieces for Sludge, as rough as Sludge is, these gap fillers really help him tremendously. I think it's a good set. I really do. I really do. So when I take Volcanicus here, here's the thing. So you put a hand back here, for example. If you want to use the wing pack from the other upgrade kit here, you can't put this here. You'd have to leave the legs unattached and kind of put the wing pack down behind his head, which you could certainly do. That's what Maximal 10 had done when I got this set. In terms of the articulation, it's all still there. Nothing has really changed with it, other than now the feet give you a bit of an ankle tilt, assuming that they stay on. I do like the added height, though it only adds maybe an inch or so. So he's still going to be small compared to mainline combiners, but if they do other core class combiners, he'll tower over them a little bit. In terms of the arms, man, did this help things tremendously. So much. He has full, sensible, normal arms. I love the spikes on the back of the hand, the articulated fingers. The gray is a slightly different shade of gray than the stock here, but I don't think it's going to bother you, and I don't think you're going to notice it. The look is tremendous. The installation, not hard. The added value to the Dinobots and to Volcanicus is definitely there. I think if you have core class Volcanicus, you probably owe it to yourself to do yourself a favor and get the DNA set. Because while some add-on kits I feel like are a bit frivolous, I don't think this one is. And I think it's going to take probably a little combiner that you're already thinking is pretty darn neat and make him just a little bit more spectacular. Let me know what you think about this upgrade kit. I think it is a winner. I appreciate you guys coming by, giving me some of your extremely valuable time. I do know how important it is to you. If you're in a position to help the channel to grow, you can use the donate link. Check us out on Patreon. See what we have to offer to you through Spring, or of course hit the join button at any given time and become a channel member. While you are at it, hit the subscribe button, stick around and have some fun with us here on the channel. And don't forget, not for a moment, not for a second, that you right there, you do make a difference in the world. And I look forward to the next time that you and I get together to have another visit, either in the live streams on Thursday nights, at the stop motion premieres, or the old-fashioned way right here inside the videos.